It's a quiet, private moment of anxiety that so many of us know. The faint but undeniable collection of strands left on a pillowcase in the morning. The slightly more than usual amount of hair tangled in the bristles of a brush. The spiderweb-like pattern that clings to the shower wall after a wash. In these moments, our minds often leap to the worst conclusions. Genetics, aging, some irreversible process taking hold. We rush to find topical solutions, expensive shampoos and scalp treatments, hoping to fight the problem from the outside in. But what if this thinning, this weakening, this shedding isn't an external problem at all? What if it's a distress signal, a flare sent up from deep within your body, communicating a fundamental need that has gone unmet? Your hair, in many ways, is a barometer of your internal health. Because it is not essential for survival, it is one of the first systems the body will ration resources from when supplies are low. Before your vital organs feel the strain, your hair, skin, and nails will often show the first signs of a deficit. And among the most common, yet frequently overlooked, culprits behind this silent retreat of vitality are deficiencies in three core nutrients: iron, vitamin D, and protein. Understanding how these specific deficiencies starve your hair follicles is the first and most critical step toward reclaiming not just the health of your hair, but the balance of your entire system. This is not a story about cosmetic fixes. It's a deep dive into the biochemistry of your body and the profound connection between what you consume and the life that literally grows from you. Let us begin with iron, a mineral synonymous with strength and energy, yet its role in hair health is far more intricate than most people realize. To understand why an iron deficiency can lead to significant hair shedding, we first need to appreciate the immense energy demands of a healthy hair follicle. The cells in the hair matrix, located at the base of the follicle, are some of the most rapidly dividing cells in the entire human body. This constant, furious process of cell division, which builds the hair shaft from the ground up, requires a tremendous amount of metabolic energy. And the currency of that energy is oxygen. This is where iron makes its grand entrance. Iron is the central, indispensable component of hemoglobin, the protein found in your red blood cells responsible for capturing oxygen in the lungs and transporting it to every single cell in your body, including those hyperactive cells in your hair follicles. When iron levels are inadequate, the body cannot produce enough hemoglobin. This leads to a decrease in the oxygen-carrying capacity of your blood. Your body, being an incredibly intelligent and efficient survival machine, immediately enters a state of triage. It must prioritize where its limited oxygen supply goes. The brain, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, these are non-negotiable and will receive oxygen first. Tissues and processes deemed non-essential for immediate survival are placed at the back of the line. Hair growth, unfortunately, falls squarely into this category. The body essentially decides that building strong, healthy hair is a luxury it cannot afford when basic survival functions are at stake. The specific type of hair loss most commonly associated with iron deficiency is known as telogen effluvium. To grasp this, you need a basic understanding of the hair growth cycle. Each hair on your head cycles through three main phases. The anagen phase is the active growth phase, which can last anywhere from 2 to 7 years. At any given time, about 85 to 90% of your hair should be in this phase. Next is the catagen phase, a short transitional period of about 2 weeks where the hair follicle shrinks. Finally, there is the telogen phase, or the resting phase, which lasts for about 3 months. During this phase, the hair shaft is dormant in the follicle before it is eventually shed to make way for a new anagen hair to grow. About 10 to 15% of your hairs are normally in this telogen phase. Low iron disrupts this delicate cycle in a dramatic way. The lack of oxygen and energy signals to a significant number of hair follicles that it's time to prematurely exit the anagen growth phase and enter the telogen resting phase. So, instead of having 85% of your hair growing, you might suddenly have 70%, with the other 30% now shifted into the resting phase. Since the telogen phase culminates in shedding about 3 months later, you won't notice the hair loss immediately after the trigger. You'll notice it around 3 months down the line, as a sudden, diffuse shedding all over the scalp. It's not bald patches, but an overall reduction in volume and density, a thinning that feels pervasive. However, the story of iron and hair loss has a crucial character that is often missed in standard medical checkups: ferritin. Hemoglobin levels, which are checked in a complete blood count, CBC, are the last thing to drop. Before your body allows its primary oxygen transport system to fail, it will raid its savings account. Ferritin is the protein that stores iron in your body's tissues. It's the iron reserve, the backup supply. When your dietary intake of iron is insufficient, your body begins to pull iron from these ferritin stores to maintain adequate hemoglobin production for your vital organs. This means you can have a completely normal hemoglobin level and not be clinically anemic, but have rock-bottom ferritin stores. This state is known as non-anemic iron deficiency, and it is a primary driver of hair loss. The body is essentially stealing the iron stored in non-essential tissues like the hair follicle to keep the rest of the system running. This is why many individuals, particularly women, complain of hair shedding to their doctors, get a standard blood test, are told their iron is normal, and leave without an answer. The key is to specifically test for serum ferritin. While lab reference ranges for ferritin can go as low as 15 or 20 nanograms per milliliter, Ng per L, studies on hair health suggest that for hair follicles to be adequately supplied and for hair loss to cease and regrowth to begin, ferritin levels should ideally be above 50 Ng per L, with many trichologists and dermatologists aiming for a target of over 70 Ng per L. This is a critical distinction. Not deficient for survival is a very different benchmark than optimal for thriving hair growth. Who is most at risk for this insidious deficiency? The list is long. Premenopausal women are at the top due to monthly blood loss through menstruation. A plant-based diet, while healthy in many ways, puts individuals at higher risk because the iron from plants, non-heme iron, is significantly less bioavailable than iron from animal sources, heme iron. The body absorbs only 2 to 20% of non-heme iron compared to 15–35% of heme iron. Furthermore, compounds in plants like phytates in grains and legumes and tannins in tea and coffee can further inhibit non-heme iron absorption. Individuals with gastrointestinal conditions like celiac disease, inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, or those who have had bariatric surgery often have compromised iron absorption. Endurance athletes also have higher iron needs due to increased red blood cell turnover and iron loss through sweat. The symptoms often creep up slowly: fatigue that isn't resolved by sleep, pale skin, shortness of breath during mild exertion, cold hands and feet, brittle nails, and, of course, that diffuse, frustrating hair shedding. Addressing this requires a two-pronged approach. First, incorporating iron-rich foods is essential. For heme iron, this includes red meat, poultry, and fish. For non-heme iron, think lentils, chickpeas, spinach, tofu, and fortified cereals. A crucial tip is to always consume non-heme iron sources with a source of vitamin C, like bell peppers, broccoli, tomatoes, or a glass of orange juice. Vitamin C can increase the absorption of non-heme iron by up to 6 times, transforming it into a more usable form for the body. Second, if a deficiency is confirmed by a blood test, supplementation under medical guidance is often necessary. It's vital not to self-prescribe high-dose iron supplements, as excess iron is toxic and can cause significant organ damage. A doctor can recommend the correct form, like iron bisglycinate, which is often gentler on the stomach, and dosage to safely and effectively rebuild those crucial ferritin stores. But be patient. It can take 3 to 6 months of consistent supplementation to replenish ferritin levels, and another few months after that for the hair cycle to normalize and visible regrowth to appear.
While iron's role is tied to oxygen and energy, our next nutrient operates on a completely different yet equally vital axis. It functions less like a raw material and more like a master switch for cellular activity. We're talking about vitamin D, often called the sunshine vitamin, but which functions more accurately as a potent steroid hormone within the body. Its connection to hair health has only been understood in more recent years, but the evidence is compelling and multifaceted. Every hair follicle contains vitamin D receptors. The very presence of these receptors tells us that vitamin D has a direct, designated role to play in the follicle's life. Research has revealed that one of its most critical functions is to help regulate the hair cycle, specifically in transitioning follicles from the dormant telogen phase back into the active anagen growth phase. Essentially, vitamin D helps to wake up sleeping follicles and kickstart new hair growth. When vitamin D levels are insufficient, these receptors are not adequately activated. This can result in a prolonged telogen phase and a delay in the initiation of new anagen hairs. This means that after a hair is shed naturally, the follicle may remain dormant for longer than it should, or in some cases fail to produce a new hair at all. Over time, this leads to a gradual thinning of the hair as fewer and fewer follicles are actively participating in the growth cycle at any given time. This mechanism is distinct from the mass shedding of telogen effluvium caused by low iron. It's a more insidious thinning due to a failure to regenerate.
Furthermore, the influence of vitamin D extends into the realm of the immune system, which has profound implications for certain types of hair loss. Vitamin D is a powerful immune modulator, helping to keep the immune system balanced and preventing it from becoming overactive. This is particularly relevant for autoimmune hair loss conditions, most notably alopecia areata. In this condition, the body's own immune cells mistakenly attack healthy hair follicles, causing inflammation and leading to patchy or complete hair loss. A significant body of research has found a strong correlation between low vitamin D levels and the prevalence and severity of alopecia areata. While low vitamin D doesn't cause the autoimmune condition itself, it appears to be a significant contributing factor that can exacerbate the immune dysregulation, making the body more susceptible to such attacks. By helping to regulate the immune response, adequate vitamin D levels may help to create a less inflammatory environment around the follicle, potentially reducing the severity of autoimmune-driven hair loss and supporting remission. The challenge with vitamin D is that, for most of humanity, deficiency is now the rule rather than the exception. Our modern lifestyle is almost perfectly designed to create it. We get the vast majority of our vitamin D from the synthesis that occurs in our skin upon exposure to UVB radiation from the sun. However, we now spend most of our lives indoors. When we do go outside, we wisely use sunscreen to protect against skin cancer, but this blocks the very UVB rays needed for vitamin D production. Geographic location plays a massive role. Anyone living north of about the 37th parallel, roughly a line running through San Francisco and Richmond, Virginia, cannot synthesize vitamin D from the sun for several months in the fall and winter, no matter how much time they spend outside. Skin pigmentation is another factor. Melanin, which gives skin its color, acts as a natural sunblock, meaning individuals with darker skin tones require significantly more sun exposure to produce the same amount of vitamin D as someone with lighter skin. It is also notoriously difficult to obtain sufficient vitamin D from diet alone. While some foods like fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, cod liver oil, and fortified milks and cereals contain it, the amounts are generally too low to correct a significant deficiency. This global deficiency epidemic means that a huge portion of the population is walking around with a key signal for hair follicle activation switched off. The associated symptoms are often vague and can overlap with other conditions: general fatigue, bone and back pain, low mood or seasonal affective disorder, SAD, and an increased susceptibility to infections. The only way to know your status for sure is through a blood test, specifically the 25-hydroxy vitamin D test.
Similar to ferritin, optimal levels for overall health and hair growth are often considered to be higher than the standard lab's sufficient range. Many functional medicine practitioners and dermatologists recommend a level between 40 to 60 Ng per L, or 100 to 150 nmol per L. If a deficiency is found, supplementation with vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, the more bioavailable form, is almost always necessary. Because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, it's best taken with a meal containing healthy fats to enhance absorption. And, again, the dosage should be determined by a healthcare professional to avoid toxicity.
We have now supplied our follicles with oxygen via iron and activated them with the hormonal signal of vitamin D. But what is the hair itself actually made of? This brings us to our third and most fundamental pillar, protein. If iron is the energy supply and vitamin D is the ignition switch, protein is the raw building material. Hair is not just tangentially related to protein, it is protein. Specifically, about 95% of the hair shaft is composed of a tough, fibrous structural protein called keratin. Keratin is constructed from amino acids, which are the building blocks obtained from the protein you eat. To build a strong, resilient strand of hair, your body requires a constant and sufficient supply of these amino acids, particularly ones rich in sulfur, like cysteine and methionine, which form strong disulfide bonds that give hair its structural integrity and strength. When dietary protein intake is inadequate, the consequences for hair are direct and devastating. Much like the triage system for oxygen, the body also prioritizes its use of protein. Amino acids are required for countless critical functions that take precedence over hair growth. Repairing muscle tissue, producing enzymes for digestion, creating hormones that regulate your entire body, building antibodies for your immune system, and maintaining the structure of your vital organs. If there aren't enough protein building blocks to go around, the body will divert them to these essential tasks first. Hair production will be throttled down or halted altogether. This doesn't just mean less hair growth, it affects the quality of the hair that is produced. Without an adequate supply of amino acids, the body cannot construct a proper keratin structure. The resulting hair shafts will be thinner, weaker, and more brittle. They will have a smaller diameter and be more prone to breakage along the shaft, not just shedding from the root. This is why protein deficiency often manifests as hair that feels limp, lifeless, and seems to snap easily. You might notice more short, broken pieces of hair after brushing or styling. The growth rate will also slow down dramatically. The anagen phase may shorten, and the overall rate of production within that phase will diminish. It's not just about the quantity of protein, but also the quality. Proteins are made of 20 different amino acids, 9 of which are essential, meaning the body cannot produce them and they must be obtained from the diet. Animal-based proteins, meat, fish, eggs, dairy, are complete proteins, as they contain all 9 essential amino acids in sufficient amounts. Many plant-based proteins, however, are incomplete, meaning they are low in one or more essential amino acids. For instance, legumes are often low in methionine, while grains can be low in lysine. This is particularly important for individuals on vegetarian or vegan diets who must be diligent about combining different plant protein sources like rice and beans or hummus and pita bread throughout the day to ensure they are getting the full complement of essential amino acids needed to synthesize complete proteins like keratin. Severe protein malnutrition, known as kwashiorkor, has hair changes as one of its hallmark symptoms. While this is rare in developed nations, subclinical or chronic low-grade protein deficiency is not. It's common among those on highly restrictive weight loss diets, the elderly who may have reduced appetite and difficulty chewing, individuals with digestive disorders that impair protein absorption, and even athletes who have significantly increased protein needs for muscle repair that may not be adequately met. The signs of insufficient protein intake extend beyond hair. You might experience muscle loss or weakness, slow wound healing, increased frequency of illness due to a weakened immune system, and brittle, ridged nails. Calculating your protein needs can provide a useful baseline,
The general recommendation is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, but this is a minimum for a sedentary person. For active individuals, or for those specifically trying to support hair regrowth, this need could increase to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram, or even higher. Focusing on incorporating a quality protein source into every meal is a practical and effective strategy. This could be eggs for breakfast, chicken or lentils in a salad for lunch, and fish or tofu for dinner, with snacks like Greek yogurt or a handful of nuts. The true complexity of nutrition-related hair loss lies in the fact that these deficiencies rarely occur in isolation. They are often intertwined. For example, an individual on a restrictive plant-based diet could easily become deficient in iron, vitamin D, if not supplementing, and quality protein simultaneously, creating a perfect storm for hair thinning. Furthermore, these nutrients interact. Iron is required for the proper function of the thyroid gland, and an underactive thyroid, hypothyroidism, is another major cause of hair loss. Vitamin D is essential for calcium absorption, another mineral that plays a role in hair follicle health. A poor diet that leads to one deficiency is likely to lead to others, creating a cascade of negative effects that all culminate in what you see in the brush. This is why a comprehensive approach is paramount. The first step is not to the supplement aisle, but to a doctor's office for thorough blood work that goes beyond the basics, specifically requesting serum ferritin, 25-hydroxyvitamin D, and potentially a complete metabolic panel. Self-diagnosing and megadosing on individual supplements can be ineffective and even dangerous. Once you have a clear picture of your nutritional status, you can work with a professional to build a targeted plan. This plan must be built on a foundation of a diverse, whole foods diet rich in lean proteins, leafy greens, colorful vegetables, and healthy fats. Supplementation serves to correct a diagnosed deficiency and bridge the gap, but it cannot replace a nutrient-poor diet. Finally, patience is the most crucial and often most difficult ingredient. Because of the nature of the hair growth cycle, it takes time. It takes months to replenish your body's internal stores, and several more months for those newly nourished and activated hair follicles to produce hairs that are long enough to be visible and contribute to overall volume. But this journey is about more than just aesthetics. Addressing these deficiencies is about listening to your body. Your hair is telling you a story about its internal environment. By learning to interpret its signals, you are embarking on a path to restore not just your hair, but your fundamental health and vitality from the inside out, creating a resilience that radiates all the way to the very tips of your hair.